Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 3044-8-1.875-600. This is possibly the largest double-acting spring hinge that I've ever seen, or that's made. This is a real specific hinge, going to be used on a really big, heavy door, is where you're going to see this. It's called a clamp style hinge, and it's obviously why they're going to stick the door inside of this clamp, and then you're going to through bolt the door through this. And where you're going to use such a beast is, again, when you have a really big, heavy door. This hinge is completely made to order. Not so much the fact that it's double acting, but the fact that it's a clamp style that's made for a specific door thickness. So having something that's 1.875 thick, that's obviously unusual, but not unheard of, because you literally could have an 1.75 thick door with standard grade laminate on both sides of the door. Don't quote me, but isn't standard grade 60 thousandths thick? Well, if you add a couple of pieces, a 1/16 of an inch on either side, you're going to be right at 1 7/8 inches. So a double-acting hinge like this, you could use it in lots of applications where you have a large door that has something probably applied to it to give you that unusual door thickness. Clamp style is really common in the sense of working with a heavy door because you need to through bolt it rather than the standard leaf where you're going to mount it from the back side of the leaf into the edge of the door. If you have a heavy door, a real heavy door, and you're double acting it, that door is going to come through that open, close, open cycle, and it's going to just go not as a, not as a fixed half circle. It's going to go elliptically through that opening at some point. You want to make sure that door is connected to the hinge so that the door over time doesn't come out. And I've seen double-acting hinges like this hinge installed when you have chameleon type doors or calamine doors, I've heard it pronounced, where it's just metal clad over something else and you've got an unusual door thickness. Someone could take a wood door, they could then put 30,000 sheet metal over it on both sides because you're taking material in and out. Okay? You are hitting the doors directly with carts. You could have a large transportation distribution type center where you've got these huge double acting doors that aren't fire rated and you need really robust hardware for it. Anyway, the 304, let's dissect the part number. The 3044 specifically means that we're dealing with a double acting hinge that is going to be a clamp style hinge. And let's talk about the different possibilities of a 3044. The 3044 itself is indeed 8-inch only, clamp style only. The only opportunity that you really have to deviate with the 3044 is when it comes to door thickness. There are 5 thicknesses that they list in the catalog: 1.75, 1 7/8, 2-inch, 2 1/4, and 2.5 inch. Those 5 sizes. Okay. Now, when I'm referring to those different door thicknesses, there is a link below this video to a document called Cut Sheet, and it will show you the table at the bottom based on the door width, its door thickness, and how heavy of a door they're thinking that you're going to swing with it. I mean, you can see that you get some pretty outrageously heavy door weights calculated in. That's in pounds. It's just unbelievable that you can hang a door that weighs 500 pounds on 4 hinges. And that's where the through bolting is going to come into play. You wouldn't dare swing a door with just screws into the edge of it. You're going to through bolt that with these hex cap screws that are included. Okay? You're going to absolutely want to make sure you're going to have through bolts right through the door. You can see how that's going to work. You're going to want to make sure that the leaf back here, you are not saying that you're going to weld this to the jamb, but you might weld it to your channel iron frame. Or if you're not, you're going to be absolutely sure to be drilling and tapping that mechanically to the jamb so that there's really no chance that it's going to come out. Okay, let's look at the rest of the screw package. You're going to get your 3 hex cap bolts, and these again are based on the thickness of the door, and a star washer you're going to obviously need as well. You'll get 3 sets of those, and I'm just putting them together, forgive me. The 600 in the part number, by the way, is prime coat. That means 2 things. It means it's made of steel and that it is in a prime coat finish. All of the hinges that are 3044 from Bommer are made of steel. We have them listed in the site in probably about 6 different or 8 different finishes. Prime 600 prime, just going from memory. 600 for prime coat, 601 for bright black Japan, 603 for zinc, a zinc coating, 632 for polished brass, 633 for satin brass, 639 for satin bronze, 646 for satin nickel. Oh, I missed one. 640 for oil rub bronze, 646 for satin nickel, 651 for polished chrome, 652 for satin chrome. So about 10 finishes. They can do others, but it's made of steel, so keep that in mind. You will then get 5 Torx style machine bolts. It appears to be a 1/4 20, 5 of them, and that's meant to go through the countersunk area here, drilled and tapped, obviously, to finish off the installation. Okay. I might be really interested in welding that if I was concerned about that door weight. That's a lot of weight to move through a cycle like that. And that's why these hinges, they literally weigh almost 11 pounds each. You're going to get a couple of tension pins and a tension rod, and we're going to go over that when we get to the installation instructions. Okay, so the cut sheet down below gives you the table by which how many hinges you should consider based on the door width, the door thickness, the door height. Okay. Box clamp type door flange is attached to door with through bolts and nuts. Jam flange is secured to frame with screws. Made of steel, non-template. That means that these holes are not in a particular pattern. They're in the pattern that Bommer places them in. They're not compliant with any ANSI standard. Non-handed. These can go, they're double acting, so the point being it doesn't matter if you install them over on this side or over on this side. You can do it this way as well as if you want. The listing of the items that are included is below, and what's really important to talk about on the cut sheet, and we'll probably touch on it again, is the location of them. If you are doing 2 hinges, one will go at the top, one will go at the bottom, that's what you've got to do, because that's how you're going to hang the door. If you get into a scenario where you have more than 2, like 3 hinges, put one at the top, put one right below it, and then the third at the bottom, 2 at the top. If you get into a situation where you have 4 hinges, they want 2 at the top, 1 in the middle, the third at the bottom. I don't see there would be any problem with putting 3 at the top myself, but that's what the manufacturer recommends. A gentleman there at Bommer who I've had extensive conversation with and recourse with as it comes to discourse, I should say, at times it seems, just joking. Discourse in the sense of him teaching me how things work, which is always greatly appreciated to get an education from the technical support manager at Bommer, who can talk at length on applications of this and how they've been tested and how they've been known to work in ways that you can know if something's working or not, etc. Clamp flanges are not adjustable, meaning you can't play with the door thickness. They are literally made to order in all instances. I don't see any reason why you can't ask them for a 2 1/8 inch door thickness. Not at all. They're obviously just going to be shearing some steel and putting it into a press brake would be my guess. This material is always made to order 100% of the time. Be mindful of that. However, the door thickness change, they've probably not tested anything of that nature with an unusual door thickness. Okay, they are saying that your minimum height is 7 foot on these doors. I think the reason they give you a minimum height is because if you try to install 3 of these onto a door that's 4 foot tall, you could probably expect some really aggressive uncivilized behavior out of that door, because there's too much chutzpah for the size door that you're hanging. This hinge right here, an 8-inch hinge for an 1 7/8 door thickness. The client ordered 6 of these, so I'm going to go with the possibility that he's got 3 single doors that are basically, well, who knows, but it's probably a pair, where he's got a pair of pretty heavy doors. Now, we've exhausted the product catalog that's there. Let's move to the document that's called installation instructions, or I should say generic installation instructions. All that pertains to us in this time is when you're going to soldier stack those 2 hinges at the top. 2 to 3 inch between the 2 hinges is what they're looking for. And then 7-inch from the bottom of the door to the bottom of the bottom hinge. And that's why that document is important. There's then also a link to a document called template. And then there is a link to a document called 3044 installation instructions. Some of that data is going to be duplicated. And let's take a look at the template that's there first. Now that template's going to give us dimensional properties of the hinge. This is what's called an 8-inch hinge. When it comes to Bommer and double acting, there's generally nowhere where you're going to put a tape measure on there and find 8-inch. That's just not how these work. The size when it comes to double acting is generally related to the door thickness, even though that logic's not really going to apply when it comes to the 3044. Overall height of the clamp is 9 3/8, and that's borne out at the drawing that's there for the for what the manufacturer says. It is 9 3/8 on the document. The jam flange overall height is 7.5. They've got it at 7 5/8. Oh yeah, I'm wrong. It is indeed 7 5/8 tall. If you're looking for one of these hinges and you're just not sure the size, pull the template out and then get the tape measure, and that's how you're going to determine what you're dealing with. The rest of the dimensional properties that are on here, I won't beleaguer those points because, you know, you can review that on your own. What's really important to talk about is the table and graphic in the upper left-hand corner. Pardon me, upper right-hand corner. What they're showing us here is, what the heck is my door size going to be? Okay, so you're going to install this hinge. This hinge is giving you definite dimensions from the jamb to where the door is going to be, and ultimately from the jamb to where the door is going to end. That requires some thinking and planning, okay? Now, let's think and plan. So somewhere you're going to need to start with, what size am I working with? What am I fixed to? What am I relegated to? What am I caught within working? So if everything is brand new, including your rough opening, well, you can do anything you want. You know, the only thing you know is you've got a hinge that you can't change in terms of all of this. You can see from that table that's there, you've got your jamb, you've got your frame size. The question becomes, what's your door size? So what's your finished opening size? What is your net door width? Okay. One thing is fixed, that's the hinge. You've got to pick, something's going to be a variable, and probably the third thing you can define. Or two of these things are fixed, and the third is going to be the variable. Here's what I mean. The hinge is fixed. You might have a rough opening that you're stuck, a finished opening, you can't change that. The door's got to be the thing that you make according to the formula. You could also have a door that you're fixed with. You can't play with that. You know the hinge, you're going to make your rough opening around both of those pieces. You use that table to determine all of that. That's where you get into the B dimension and the 1/8 of an inch. Okay? Let's look at the formula for your single door, top line. What is your frame finished opening width going to be? It's going to be an 1/8 of an inch plus your door size plus clearance B. Okay? That is all based on mortising your door 1 1/8 inches, which means the only way to make this work is to notch the door significantly. Here's what I'm saying. You're looking at this hinge in an elevation view installed. Okay, your door is going to come to here, right? Well, that's no good because you got almost 2 inches of exposed space over here that you're going to be able to see right through. So what the formula is telling you to do is that you're going to create an 1 7/8 deep mortise so that your door is going to come down here, over this way, then down, okay? So that your door they do show it on the template, but they don't give us, you can see at the tip of my finger how they're showing that that leaf is pulled over. So, in essence, making a small sketch, it's kind of going to look like that, where this whole area is the prep in the door, where that's 1 7/8 deep, okay? If you're not cutting around the hinge, you're just going to have a really huge margin on either side of the on the hinge side of the door. You're going to see everything from here all the way over to the wall, so you probably don't want that. So that's where that epic notch comes in. So they're allowing 1/8 of an inch in the fact that these pieces have to fold against each other. They're saying mortise at 1 7/8. You're going to add your net door width and then the clearance B on the opposite side. And the clearance B on the opposite side is 1/4 inch. Now that's going to be based on an 1 7/8 thick door. If you've got a door thickness that's other, that dimension is going to change a little bit because you've got a thicker door that needs to double act inside of the opening. If you were to, for some reason, be able to make a radiused door edge, well, you could take that 1/4 inch, you could probably make it 1/8 of an inch, or even marginally less. Not that you would, but you could tighten that gap up. There ain't no way to make it 1/8 of an inch with a square edge, but if you wanted to have a tighter margin and a more equal margin on either side, you could radius that if you had the ability. If it's a laminated door, you're manufacturing the doors, that can be done. There are people that do laminate that can come around the edge like that with your laminate. So the point of the matter is you have to start with the dimension. Let's say you have a 36-inch wide opening. 36 minus 1/8 minus, let's back up. They have a column there for round edge door. I didn't notice it earlier. You can make that margin 1/8 of an inch if you radius the edge of the door. So 36-inch finished opening minus 1/8 minus 1/4, 35 5/8 will be the net door width given these circumstances. Now it all changes if you're doing a pair of doors. You're going to take, it doesn't really change, you're just doubling it basically. Double door, 1/8 of an inch, plus you're moving from hinge to door to gap to door to hinge. 1/8 of an inch plus your door size, plus clearance B, plus the net door width, plus the 1/8 of an inch. That 2 clearance B's, you've got to make sure that these doors, when the hinges are in there, are not going to hit each other. You're going to have those 2 hard outside corners that could come and hit each other. So you're going to want to make sure you've got an ample margin. So that's going to be a 1/2 of an inch. Depending on the height of the door, I might be cautious about really getting them ramped up and get 2 doors moving towards each other. You don't want to have 400-pound doors crash into each other. So be mindful of that and absolutely follow the installation instructions. Again, the engineer at Bommer, there's engineering that's been done on these. This is what you follow. If there's any questions or clarifications that you'd like to discuss before swinging a 500-pound door, please do call. I'd like to work through that with you. We don't want to have any, doors in places where they don't belong and people in places of moving doors that they don't belong. So what they want you to do under the notes is to invert the hinges if you have a pair. So one hinge is going to be with the tension collars. One side, tension collar. No tension collar. That's the top. If you're doing a pair of doors, one door will be this way, the other door will be this way. Because of the way that the springs are, they basically find that the doors just sit proper to each other, and otherwise they'll kind of sit askew from each other when they're oriented in the same direction. I don't know the engineering principle behind it. Probably has something to do with the way that the spring is coiled and the manufacturing limitations, but they do want you to flip one hinge over. No problem. Jam flange screws, they talk about the size of the screws, the fasteners, etc. There's nothing else on that template to go over. Let's move to the 3044 series instructions, which are included with your document. And this is going to talk about how to set the tension on your opening. Caution, work safely, use proper safety protection when installing and tensioning spring hinges. There are really huge springs in here. That's a really big piece of steel that's there. That's the tension rod. And then again, your tension pins. For every order that you place, you'll get one tension rod for sure. For every hinge that you order, you'll get and require 2 tension pins. Let's go over it. Remove spring tension by inserting the tension rod packed with the hinges into the tension knob or tension collar and rotate in the direction of arrows as shown in figure 2 and or figure 3 and remove tension pin. Okay, so in order to get this hinge installed, you have to not have any tension set on the spring because you're going to need to fold this jam flange back, okay, in order to get to the head to where you can attach it. It mentions the direction of arrows. I don't see the arrows on here, but they're always on their hinges. Don't see them. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is this. With the tension collar pointed towards the top of the opening, you're going to insert the tension rod into one of these holes in the back, and you're going to turn it clockwise. As you turn it clockwise, you reveal new additional holes. Okay? Insert your tension pin, relocate your tension rod, crank it over again, set your tension pin again. Be careful. There's lots of tension on those springs. Locate hinges as shown in figure 1. Door flange may be mortised or surface applied. That's a holdover from something else. You're going to mortise all of that. You don't have to. But our prior dimensional outline was based on you that making that 1 7/8 mortise. You don't have to do that. You can have that huge margin between the door and frame. Align center line of door with center line of jam and secure the jam flange. So the center line of the door is the center line of the jam is the center line of the hinge. The center line of the jam, I guess, doesn't really so much matter, but I would think that it does matter because you would want the weight of the door right in the center of your cased opening frame. If it's channel iron that's 1/4 inch thick, that ain't going to matter. But otherwise, you want to make sure that you've got that correct. Then again, the note, for best alignment of double doors, mount hinges on one door with tension knobs up and down on the opposite door, as shown in figure 1, which they do refer to there. Shims may be necessary under the edges of the jam flanges for perfect door alignment. I've had people call and say, hey, I've got a pair of doors and the doors don't sit nice with each other. Okay, well, did you put the tension collar down on one hinge? No. Was I supposed to do that? Yeah, the manufacturer says you're supposed to. Okay, next call. I got a pair of doors and one door is sitting kicked out a bit. Okay, and I've got the tension collar down. Okay, turns out one jam has got a toe to it. So unless your frames are literally square, plumb, true, expect a little bit of movement required via shims underneath the hinge leaves to make the door sit the way that you need it to. Whatever marginal defect there is in the frame is going to be amplified when you're getting inches and inches away, and the door will, sit, it's going to sit askew. So be mindful of that. Spring tensioning instructions. Place door in closed position. Wedge door up from the floor until it is plumb. So you've installed hinge onto the frame. You've got the door into the hinge clamp and you've clamped it, but by then you've got the door in place and shimmed so that it can't move. Keep it that way, because until there's tension on the springs, the door is literally going to come crashing out of the opening. That's going to make a racket and probably damage something. Insert the tension rod into the tension knob and rotate the knob in the direction of the arrows clockwise when the tension collar is up. Insert the pin, repeat the process. Do not exceed 5 holes of tension. If the door is too slow or sags, increase the tension. If you're at 5 holes of tension and you still have that problem, check your door weight, check the width, make sure the quantity of hinges is adequate. You might need to add a hinge up at the top to help mitigate that. Those would be reasons why you might. But again, and then you do the tension setting on this collar and this collar. That's why you need 2 pins. And then when the spring pushes the collar back, the tension pin is going to just rest against the shoulder of the back jam leaf. Okay. There's nothing else to discuss on these, other than if you were to radius your doors, I would just use, I forget the size of my round over bit. It might be 2 3/4 diameter into a 1.5 horse router where I've cut the base of it out. So my big giant round over bit can fit in the bottom through my base. And I'll just set that bearing so that the cutter makes its, the bottom part of the cutter hits halfway through the door. And I'll put that on the edge of the door and I'll just run it down. Don't tip your router at all if you're going to radius it. Make one more pass only. Be sure to exit off cleanly on the door itself. Don't go back this way. Don't put any force straight, because then when your router gets to the end of the door, it's going to want to sneak back on the stile of the door or on the rail of the door. You don't want that to happen. Place it on there, move straight down your workpiece, and then do it one more time to clean it up, and then you're done. Take the door, flip it over, do it a second time. 2 passes only. I've never done more. If you do more than 2, you're just going to damage something. That's in my experience. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bommer products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the Epic Bommer 3044-8 for an 1 7/8 thick door, and we've done thicker, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.